Socrates, 470 to 399 BC. Socrates is often hailed as the father of Western philosophy. He lived in Athens during a time of transition and contributed significantly to the field of ethics and the philosophy of knowledge, known as epistemology. Unlike many philosophers of his time, Socrates didn't write his thoughts down. Instead, he engaged in dialogues with people he met, questioning their beliefs and wisdom through a method now known as the Socratic method. This method involves asking a series of questions to help a person or group discover their beliefs and the extent of their knowledge. Socrates believed that understanding the limitations of one's knowledge was crucial to wisdom. He famously declared, "I know that I know nothing," which reflects his belief in the importance of questioning and recognizing one's ignorance. His work laid the groundwork for subsequent philosophers, including his student Plato, to explore concepts such as justice, virtue, and the ideal state. Socrates' life and philosophy were profound because they challenged people to think critically and introspectively about moral and philosophical questions. Plato, 428-427, 348-347 BC. Plato was a pivotal figure in the history of ancient Greek philosophy. He established the first institution of higher learning in the Western world, the Academy in Athens. His writings are mostly dialogues where the characters explore deep philosophical questions. Central themes in his work include justice, beauty, equality, and the relationship between the ideal and the real. Plato's philosophy was heavily influenced by his teacher, Socrates. However, he extended his ideas significantly, particularly with his theory of forms. This theory proposes that beyond the physical world experienced by the senses, there exists a higher realm of abstract forms or ideas that represent the true essence of all things and concepts in reality. For instance, a beautiful painting is just a reflection of the perfect, immutable form of beauty itself. Plato's Republic is one of his best-known works, where he describes his vision of an ideal state ruled by philosopher kings. He believed that these rulers, through their deep understanding of philosophy and virtue, were best equipped to govern wisely. Plato's contributions to philosophy are immense, laying foundations for ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology that are still discussed today.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC. Aristotle, a student of Plato and tutor to Alexander the Great, is considered one of the greatest philosophical minds. He founded the Lyceum, another significant institution of learning in Athens. Unlike his predecessors, Aristotle's philosophy was grounded in the empirical world. He believed that all people's knowledge comes from their experiences, a view known as empiricism. Aristotle wrote on a vast array of subjects including logic, metaphysics, ethics, politics, and science. His method involved observing the physical world and then making generalizations based on these observations. This approach is evident in his works like Nicomachean Ethics, where he proposes that the purpose of human life is to achieve happiness through the practice of virtue. His contributions to logic, particularly the syllogism, have influenced the development of deductive reasoning used in modern science. Aristotle's work not only advanced Greek philosophy but also laid foundational concepts that have shaped the intellectual landscape of the Western world in various disciplines from science to politics. Pythagoras, c. 570 to 495 BC. Pythagoras is best known for the Pythagorean theorem in mathematics, but his influence extends deeply into philosophy. He founded a movement known as Pythagoreanism, which was both a philosophical and religious school. The Pythagoreans believed that at the heart of all reality was numbers, and that understanding these numbers allowed one to understand the universe itself. The philosophy of Pythagoras went beyond mere numbers. It included beliefs in the immortality of the soul and the necessity of living a virtuous life to purify the soul. Pythagoras taught that the soul could rise to union with the divine and that certain practices and lifestyle choices could help in achieving this spiritual purification. His followers adhered to various rules, both ethical and dietary, believing that such disciplines were crucial in their philosophical and mathematical pursuits. Pythagoras' ideas have permeated various fields of study, influencing Plato and, later on, the development of Western philosophical and scientific thought. His blend of mathematics, music, and mysticism created a legacy that continues to inspire and challenge thinkers across disciplines. Heraclitus, c. 535 c. 475 BC. Heraclitus was a pre-Socratic philosopher known for his obscure and enigmatic aphorisms. He believed that the fundamental essence of the universe is change. His doctrine of constant flux is encapsulated in his famous statement, "You cannot step into the same river twice," suggesting that reality is in a state of perpetual becoming. Heraclitus proposed that this constant change is not chaotic but is ordered by a principle he called the logos, a kind of underlying reason or law inherent in the cosmos. Though much of his work remains fragmentary, his ideas about the logos suggest that he saw the universe as cohesive and intelligible, despite its constant state of flux. This notion of underlying order differentiates his philosophy from that of pure relativism or chaos. Heraclitus also emphasized the unity of opposites in the cosmos, suggesting that conflicting forces are interconnected and that they often give rise to each other in a dynamic equilibrium. For example, life and death, day and night, and other natural cycles are seen as manifestations of this principle. This perspective has influenced later philosophical concepts of dialectics and the balance of forces within a system. His thoughts on fire as a primary element, which transforms into other elements through a process of strife and opposition, further illustrate his commitment to the idea of perpetual change and conflict as central to the essence of life. Heraclitus' philosophy invites us to consider the world as a complex system of transformations governed by a rational principle, challenging us to find harmony within this constant change. Parmenides, late 6th or early 5th century BC. Parmenides was an ancient Greek philosopher who radically challenged the typical understanding of reality in his era. He posited that all change and motion are mere illusions, proposing instead that reality is singular, unchanging, and indivisible. This idea stands in stark contrast to the views of Heraclitus, who believed in perpetual change as the fundamental nature of the universe. Parmenides' philosophy is encapsulated in his poem, where he describes two paths of inquiry, the way of truth and the way of opinion. The way of truth asserts that what is ungenerated, indestructible, and eternal, essentially arguing that only being exists and non-being is impossible. This leads to the conclusion that all perceptions of change and diversity are deceptive. His ideas laid the groundwork for the school of thought known as Eleaticism, which influenced many other philosophers, including Plato. Parmenides' emphasis on reason and logical thinking as the primary tools to uncover the nature of reality has had a lasting impact on the field of metaphysics, challenging subsequent philosophers to explore the relationship between appearance and reality. Zeno of Elea, c. 495 to 430 BC. Zeno of Elea was a student of Parmenides and is best known for his paradoxes that challenge the understanding of motion and space. These paradoxes were designed to defend Parmenides' view that all change is an illusion. One of the most famous of these is the Achilles and the tortoise paradox, where fleet-footed Achilles cannot overtake a slowly moving tortoise if it has a slight head start, because he must first reach the point where the tortoise was, by which time the tortoise will have moved forward. Another well-known paradox is that of the arrow, which argues that a flying arrow is actually motionless at any single instant of time. These paradoxes cleverly use logic to demonstrate that conventional understandings of time, space, and motion lead to contradictions, thus supporting the idea that sensory experiences of motion and change are fundamentally flawed. Zeno's contributions are immensely valuable in the history of philosophy as they not only support Eleatic monism but also foreshadow later developments in mathematics and the philosophy of time and space. Epicurus, 341 to 270 BC. Epicurus was an ancient Greek philosopher who founded Epicureanism, a philosophy that identifies pleasure as the greatest good. However, his notion of pleasure was quite distinct from hedonistic indulgence. Instead, Epicurus argued that the most important pleasure is the absence of pain, both physically and mentally. This state of tranquility and freedom from fear he called ataraxia, which is achieved through modest living and the pursuit of knowledge. Epicurus placed great emphasis on friendship as a crucial source of happiness and taught that the gods, if they exist, do not concern themselves with humans. Therefore, he believed that fear of divine retribution was irrational. His philosophy also tackled existential questions, dismissing the fear of death with the argument that, when we are, death is not, and when death is, we are not. His ideas provided a framework for a self-sufficient, tranquil life free from the fear of the gods and death, which has influenced many later philosophical traditions, including humanism and secularism. Seneca, 4 BC AD 65, Seneca was a Roman Stoic philosopher, statesman, and dramatist, who made significant contributions to ethics and the philosophy of mind. As a Stoic, his works emphasize virtue as the greatest good and propose that a wise person is indifferent to fortune and misfortune. Seneca's letters and essays discuss practical strategies for overcoming destructive emotions, advocating for self-control and rationality to achieve a harmonious life. His writings are rich with insights on the human condition, offering advice on everything from dealing with grief to the importance of leisure. Seneca also explored the concept of amor fati, love of fate, which encourages embracing life as it comes, viewing all experiences as necessary parts of the whole. His philosophical works have endured through the ages not only for their profound wisdom but also for their eloquent expression, making Stoic philosophy accessible and relevant to generations of readers across cultures and epochs. Marcus Aurelius, AD 121 to 180. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, is best remembered for his work Meditations. This collection of personal writings, intended for his own guidance and self-improvement, offers profound reflections on how to handle conflict and adversity with Stoic calm and resilience. Meditations illustrates the application of Stoic philosophy to the practical problems of life and governance. Marcus emphasizes rationality, self-discipline, and the importance of fulfilling one's duty with integrity and without complaint. His thoughts on the impermanence of life and the importance of living in accordance with nature have inspired many to seek wisdom and moral righteousness. Marcus Aurelius' reign and philosophical perspectives are often cited as exemplars of virtuous leadership and the potential of philosophy to guide one's actions, even in positions of great power. His insights into human behavior, self-awareness, and the interconnectedness of all things continue to resonate today, offering guidance on how to maintain inner peace in the face of external chaos. Diogenes of Sinope, c. 412 to 323 BC. Diogenes of Sinope was a formidable figure in ancient philosophy, best known for founding the Cynic movement. His philosophy advocated for a life of virtue in harmony with nature, but it was his method of living that truly embodied his teachings. Diogenes emphasized simplicity and self-sufficiency, famously living in a large ceramic jar, or tub, rather than in conventional housing. This stark simplicity was a form of protest against the unnecessary luxuries of life in his contemporary society. Diogenes believed that virtue was better expressed in action than in theory. He used his lifestyle and behavior to criticize the social values and institutions of his time. Notorious for his sharp wit and lack of regard for social etiquette, he often used humor and public gestures to make his points, such as carrying a lamp in daylight, claiming to be looking for an honest man. His philosophy challenges us to question the norms and values we live by and encourages a return to a simpler, more natural way of living free from pretensions and material excess. Diogenes' life and teachings have had a lasting influence on many philosophical traditions, advocating for a life that prioritizes personal integrity and independence over societal approval or material success. Democritus, c. 460 to 370 BC. Democritus, often known as the laughing philosopher due to his emphasis on cheerfulness, was a pre-Socratic philosopher who proposed an influential theory concerning the nature of the universe. He theorized that all matter is composed of tiny, indestructible units called atoms. This atomic theory, which he developed alongside his mentor Leucippus, posits that these atoms move through the void, empty space, combining in various ways to form all the objects and materials in the world. Democritus' ideas were revolutionary because they provided a naturalistic explanation for the world that did not invoke supernatural forces or beings. Atoms, according to Democritus, differ in shape, position, and arrangement, and these variations account for the different properties of materials, though the atoms themselves remain unchanged. His philosophical framework laid the groundwork for the later development of science, particularly in chemistry and physics. The idea that complex structures result from the combination of simple parts led to important scientific principles such as conservation of matter and the study of atomic and molecular structures. Although his atomic theory was not fully accepted until modern times, Democritus' contributions to philosophy and science have been recognized as pivotal in the shift from mythological to rational explanations of the natural world.